Alright guys, what is going on? This is the power rankings for Rocket League. These are going to be, my opinion, who are the best players in the world right now after league play is over. And before we start, I just want to let you guys know that this is my opinion, as is every single power rankings video that you guys see on YouTube. So I don't want to hear in the comment section, "Oh, Jerry, I don't think this player belongs on the top 10. This video sucks." Alright, I don't want to hear it. Alright, you're welcome to your own opinion in the comment section down below. I'd actually really love to hear what you guys think of my list, who you guys would have put on yours. But I'm going to be going over who I think truly are the top 10 players in the world right now, and I'm going to be going over why. So yeah, let's get right into it. And at number 10, I have Arsenal. Now, one of the most mechanically gifted players in the world. I think there's only a handful of people in the world with better mechanics than Arsenal. In terms of his performance on Space Station Gaming, I think he has the most advanced mechanics. Arsenal was number 5 in terms of assists per game, averaging 0.59 assists per game. All season, he was just feeding the ball to his teammates. Just every time he has the ball, he is able to do something. He is always putting himself in a position where he can make a play, where he can open space, creating the opportunities for AXB and Sypical to come in and clean up for him. Space Station Gaming took the number 1 seed in North America, and I think that it was heavily thanks to Arsenal. And then for my number 9, some people might be surprised, but I have Justin. A lot of you guys, maybe who haven't been watching this season, still would have put him higher, but Justin was plagued with a little bit of inconsistency this season. I would have had him at actually number 1 if this was season 8, but NRG definitely didn't have the season that they were wishing for, and I think that just has to do with a bit of inconsistency. But when Justin was on, he was looking like one of the few players, in my opinion, who had better mechanics than Arsenal. Justin was doing things in RLCS that we had never seen before. When he was on, he still showed that he was a top tier player, and he would demolish his opponents in the mechanical department. I think Justin is the only player in the world right now to have gone for a double flip reset in RLCS. Now, I'm not saying that he actually hit one, but when Justin's on, he's so comfortable with his advanced level of mechanics that he's pretty much unstoppable. And that's the point that I'm trying to make, that he really is still a top 10 player in the world, and that's why I think he's deserving of the number 9 spot still. Justin was number 2 in goals per game in all of North America. Justin averaging 0.85 goals per game, which is an insanely high amount. So yeah, Justin definitely well deserving of that number 9 seed. And then for my number 8 spot, I have Fairypeak, who had one of the best seasons of his career. He was number 1 in terms of goals per game in Europe, averaging 1.03 goals per game. Just one of the highest in RLCS history. Fairypeak just could not stop putting the ball in the back of the net. Every shot he took, he was on fire. He set a new record in terms of goals scored in a game by a single player. He had 8 goals in one game. Now, he might not have the flashy mechanics, but when it comes down to mechanical efficiency, he is on fire. He just knows where to be at all times, and I would not be surprised if some people have him higher on their list. But in my opinion, I do think that there are some players that did outshine Fairypeak this season, and that brings us to the number 7 spot. We have Alpha 54. Now, I wanted to try and not put multiple people from the same team on this list, because I didn't want the list to be plagued with one team or 2 teams, you know what I mean? But I mean, Vitality just had such a good season. You can't not put Alpha 54 also on this list. Alpha 54, number 1 in assists per game. He was the most unselfish player in all of Europe, averaging 0.72 assists per game. Alpha 54 showing his insane mastery of high-level mechanics to be able to open up space on the field and pass to Kaydop and Fairypeak. Alpha 54 is just one of the most dominant players in the game right now, and if you don't believe me, go watch any of the Vitality matches, except for the first one of the season. That one was kind of shaky. And then at number 6, no surprise that he's on this list, we have Shock. Shock, who just had arguably the best rookie season in RLCS history. Shock averaged 2.06 goals per game at the beginning of the season, single-handedly carrying his team against NRG, against SSG, taking down a top-level team, being the only team to take down the number 1 seed in North America. If it wasn't for Shock, SSG would have easily had a 9-0 season. Shock was always saving the ball, putting the ball in the back of the net, At times, it felt like he just couldn't miss, that he was on the level of Fairypeak in terms of striking. I think it goes without saying he deserves to be on this list. He's in the running for league MVP right now for North America, and well deserving of the 6th place spot. And at number 5, we have Sypical. Again, I put another player of SSG on this list, but come on, how do you not put Sypical? Sypical averaging 0.71 assists per game. He was 2nd in North America. If you thought Arsenal's insane mastery of mechanics were what was opening up the pitch for his teammates to score, well then take a look at Sypical. Sypical might not have the flashy mechanics, but he just has mechanical efficiency down. He has mastery of basic level mechanics. He knows positioning, just how to slightly hit the ball to put it in a more awkward spot for his opponents. You don't want to go up against Sypical. He's also regarded as the number 1 2v2 player in the world right now. Although this is 3v3, that still counts for something, showing that he just, in all game modes, he's at the very top. In fact, Sypical is one of the players I wouldn't be surprised if people had higher on their top players in the world list, because he's just so dominant at the game. He's definitely deserving of the number 5th spot. And then, time to get into the top 4. Can anyone guess who I have as my number 4th spot? Well, number 4, we have Atomic, who had easily the best season of his career. Atomic was honestly the carry for Ghost Gaming. Some series he had 100% goal participation. He was number 4 in assists in North America at 0.65. It looked like every time he had the ball, he put it in a spot for his teammates to score. He was serving his teammates on a silver platter some games. Atomic probably has the 2nd best mechanics in the world right now. He's just one of the best players this game's ever seen right now. And just his dominance on the field is what earned him his number 4 spot. And now we have the top 3 in the world. And you might be able to argue who you think the top 3 is, but I can argue back why I think these 3 deserve the top 3 in the world right now. So at number 3, we have JKnaps, who was not just the carry for G2, but just one of the best players, hands down, well-rounded. I think JKnaps is the 2nd most well-rounded player in the world right now. And I think that in terms of overall mechanics, he's probably the 3rd or 4th best player, just after Justin and Atomic, maybe Arsenal, if we're talking about mechanics only. Also, there's another thing I want to point out there. When I say someone has great mechanics, obviously, if you take a player like Sypical or Kaydop, they have just insane mastery of your basic level mechanics. They're just well-rounded in the mechanical department. Their mechanics are good, but then there's also another step above. There's advanced mechanics, and judging who's the best player in the world mechanically, you gotta look at the in-between. Who's got the flashy mechanics, who's got the basic mechanics. And if I were to make a top 10 list, or a top 3 list even, of just mechanics, overall mechanics, I'd probably have like Astral, Atomic, JKnaps, Arsenal, Justin, and obviously Kaydop. I mean, obviously he doesn't have the flashy mechanics, but he's still like, I think Kaydop is the best at the basic mechanics in the world right now. Just like that. So I just wanted to clear that up real quick before people are in the comment section because they have false information or they misunderstand what I'm saying. But back to JKnaps, he doesn't have flashy mechanics, but in terms of mechanical efficiency, positioning, his challenge game, I think JKnaps is the number 1 in terms of challenging the ball. His decision making on his challenges, I think, are like no other in the game right now. He wins challenges you wouldn't even think to go for. JKnaps is number 1 in terms of assists in North America, averaging 0.78. And on top of that, he is 5th in goals per game. He just dominates the stat lines. He is one of the few players in the entire world right now who dominates more than one stat line for their region. He averaged 0.78 goals per game. So JKnaps was just all over the field doing everything for his team. G2 snagged a number 2 spot in North America because of the knapsack. JKnaps right now is just crazy nuts. JKnaps is playing at a peak Rocket League performance like we've never seen before. But then there's just a couple people who overshadow JKnaps. And my pick for number 2 is Aztral. Aztral, in my opinion, the number 1 most mechanically gifted player in the world right now in terms of his basic mechanics, high-level mechanics, ability to put the ball in a position for his teammates to score. Aztral this entire season was getting touches on the ball nobody knew existed. He was doing the most crazy things. He was 3rd in assists, and he was 3rd in goals per game. Just one of the only people to overshadow JKnaps in terms of stats. Astral dominated every stat line that there was, with 0.67 assists per game, 0.74 goals per game. Astral, the carry for Dignitas. I mean, obviously everyone on Dignitas played well, but if it wasn't for Astral, they would be struggling for top 4, definitely. And then there's just one player who is, in my opinion, without a doubt, the best player in the world right now. And the second greatest Rocket League player to ever live. The second best Rocket League player in history of the game. And it's Kaydop. Kaydop, after winning 3 world championships, comes out and has arguably the best season of his career this league play. He was second in assists and second in goals per game. Kaydop in every single stat line was on top. He dominated. Kaydop was everywhere on the field. He was dishing out passes. He was scoring. The man couldn't miss. The only thing that he didn't dominate was saves, and it's because Vitality was so good they didn't need to make saves. So Kaydop didn't have to make the saves, but he could have. He easily could have. He's that good of a player. With 0.85 goals per game and 0.69 assists per game, this goes down in the record books as one of the most dominating performances by a single player in RLCS history. Obviously, there were others, like in the Dignitas era, and just some others that were, of course, a little more dominant than this, but this definitely goes down in history for a single player's performance. Kaydop, after all these years, still on top. Still. Vitality looking easily like the #1 team in the world, and Vitality is the only team that I had to put all 3 members on this top 10 list because they are all so good. I can't stress enough just how good they are. They just took 3 top 10 players in the world and put them on one team and made it the most dominant team. If Vitality keeps playing like this will go down in history as the new Dignitas era, the Vitality era. This could be the second most dominant team in Rocket League history, or the most. Man, these guys are crazy nuts. And the thing is, Kaydop's every part of the game. Kaydop obviously doesn't have the flashy mechanics, but in terms of basic mechanics, he's #1 in the world, #1 in basic mechanics. So yeah, that's my top 10 list. The top 3 players, I think that only those that JKnaps, Aztral, and Kaydop deserve the top 3 because no other player had the stats like they did. Just no one else did. Obviously, there were times where other players popped off and looked more flashy, but that's not what it comes down to. That's just not what it comes down to at all. It's not who looks the coolest or the hottest on the field, you know what I mean? You know, it's about who performs. It's about putting the ball in the back of the net. It's about helping your team putting the ball in the back of the net. And at times it's about keeping the ball out of your net, which I think every member in these top 10 lists did very well. They helped keep the ball out. It's just these players didn't need to play defense. They just didn't. Except Shock, because at the beginning of the season, the only reason they won was because of all the saves Shock was making, which again, well deserving of that #6 spot. So yeah, here's the top 10. I'll put them up on screen for you guys to see in order again, and let me know what you guys think. I think you could definitely argue 4 through 10, but the top 3, man, I think there's a clear top 3. But again, I would love to hear what you guys think. And again, as always, if you do enjoy, hit subscribe. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and yeah, I would really appreciate it. And till next time, I'll see you. Peace.